Hey friends, this is a recap of what we did today. CC Cycle 2, Week 8. For math, we did the 14s and we just did all kinds of different animal movements as we went around the room singing the 14s song. For Latin, we sang it loud, soft, slow, fast, and we did make the connection of it was the first conjugation ending perfect tense, and it is connected to I have done something. It's completing an action. And so the sentence to remember it is, you have gifted me the perfect present. Perfect present. So it's and it starts with E. Isti it. Imis istis errant. So that's how we'll remember that one. For English, we did the reflexive pronouns, and I told the kids to imagine that they're looking at themselves in a mirror, and when you look in a mirror, you're looking at yourself. So you would say, I see myself. You see yourself. He, she, it sees himself, herself, itself. And then there's the plural. Ourselves, yourselves, themselves. For geography, I made my little paper boats again, and we sailed around the world and looked for the different areas in the mid-Atlantic world. So Cape of Good Hope, Strait of Magellan, Canary Islands, and then the Treaty of Tordesillas. And I let them know that this treaty is actually just a political line that cuts the world, like slices it this way. And that's actually the reason why in the Americas, in South America, everyone speaks Spanish except for Brazil, because Brazil is on this side of the line as opposed to everyone else who's on the other side of the line. Even though eventually Brazil did get bigger and ended up going on the other side of the line, but that's the reason why they speak Portuguese. And we did leave our maps out so that we could do our history sentence, which was tell me about the European explorers, because that sentence this week had lots of different places. So we actually just kept our maps out and we looked for the different places as we sang the song several times, and we pointed with our fingers to different places. So tell me about European explorers between the 1400s and the 1500s. And then we said Diaz rounded the Cape of Good Hope. So we pointed to the Cape of Good Hope. Amerigo Vespucci sailed to the Americas. We circled the Americas. Balboa crossed Central America, so we sliced Central America to the Pacific. Magellan's crew sailed around the world, so we just circled the whole map. And Coronado explored the American Southwest, so we pointed to the area of like New Mexico, Arizona, regular Mexico. And then for science, the question was, what are some aquatic biomes? And we said some aquatic biomes are, and these were the hand motions, ponds and lakes, streams and rivers, wetlands and estuaries, oceans and seas. And we did that with all kinds of movements. Did we do movements? No, I think we did silly voices. That's the one we did silly voices for. We did baby, daddy voice, whisper. And then we did our timeline, which is just a reminder, Council of Nicaea, 3-1, because that's where they talked about God's Trinity, the Holy Trinity. Augustine, A of Hippo, he had a conversion, so we do the sign for change. Augustine of Hippo. Jerome is a J, completes the Vulgate, is a book, the Latin translation of the Bible. Visigoths, so there's a V. Sac, Rome, there's an R. And then the Middle Ages, circa 450 to circa 1500. And then Council of Chalcedon, so we do the sign for Jesus. Western, W, Western Roman Empire falls to barbarians, and you have to make this face, barbarians, and they enjoyed that. And we did that several times. We just sang it through and did the hand motions. And then for our fine arts this week, we talked about dynamics, which is the different volumes that you can use when you're expressing yourself through music. And we learned that piano is soft and forte is loud, and pianissimo is abbreviated by PP, and it means very soft, and fortissimo means very loud, and it's 2 F's. And then there's mezzo piano, so medium, soft, and then mezzo forte, medium, forte. So the levels from softest to loudest are pianissimo, piano, mezzo forte, forte, fortissimo. And we just practiced our song. We sang it with the different variations and dynamics. We learned a little bit We reviewed the parts of the tin whistle, which they learned last week, and we learned the first measure of our song, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So if you're practicing at home, you can actually, a good tip is to let the kids know that they are free to practice outside for the birds. The birds love to hear the tin whistle if you don't want to hear tin whistle in your house, because I understand that. But we did learn the first measure of our song, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So it's all the fingerings together, all the little holes closed is D. So it's D, D, and then the top two closed, everything else open, A, A. And we played that several times. Twinkle, twinkle. And they can practice that at home this week. Twinkle, twinkle. We learned D, D, A, A. And that is actually in your guide. And for anyone who's never done this kind of music theory before, we'll get to what all of these notes mean and why they're different and what all these little doohickeys are and all of this. We'll get to it. So for now, we're just learning a couple of the fingerings and dynamics for today. But I did want to point out that this kind of has like a little bit of a cheat sheet where it gives you the fingering in your tin whistle above each of the notes. So you're able to see that this is D, D, which means everything's covered, and then A, A, just the two. And then here's the next one, B, B, right? Yeah, B, B is just one. So whenever you have the filled in holes, it means that you're holding it, you're covering that hole. And then when it's an open circle, it means that that finger hole is open, just to give you a little tip if you guys are going to practice at home. And we also talked about listening to the conductor, only playing when you're supposed to, when you're given the permission to do so. And we learned that there's rest position when our tin whistle is down in our lap. There is ready position when our tin whistle is in our chin and our fingers are where they need to be. And then there's play position when our tin whistle is in our mouth and we're about to blow. And then for science, we had such a fun day today. We actually made a proportional solar system, and we used lots of different size balls to model what the variations and sizes are to each planet. So the sun was a big beach ball, and then Mercury was a little bead, and Venus was a golf ball, and Earth was also a golf ball, and then Mars was a little marble, and then Jupiter and Saturn were the size of soccer balls, and then Uranus and Neptune were the size of tennis balls. And the kids we had just great conversations about what they observed about the different sizes in relation to each other. And we also measured out using a tape measure in inches how far they were away from the sun and from each other. So we were able to see that the first four planets are kind of closer together, closer to the sun, and then there's like a gap, and then the bigger planets are like much farther away. And we just had great conversations about how one Earth year is actually the same as half an Earth year in Mars. So it takes Mars 687 days to go around the sun one time, whereas it takes us 365 days on Earth. And then, it's 165 years for Neptune to go all the way around. So that's just mind blowing. So we had fun with that. And then we also talked about gravity and how gravity is different based on where the planets are in relation to the sun. And we also made the connection that Earth is exactly in the best place to be able to support life, and how our creator is so magnificent that he placed Earth exactly not too far and not too close to the sun, so that we are, the very delicate creatures that we are, would be able to survive Earth's conditions. So that is all we did for today. I had an awesome day with your kids. I pray that y'all have an amazing week and that you keep practicing at home, and I'll see you next week. Bye.